Hello everybody, so today I actually have more of a theory video for you guys because this episode actually gave us a lot of clues, a lot of new information in regards to who could possibly be behind the attacks, and so I feel confident enough that I have a pretty strong suspicion so that I can make a video about this and just, sort of explain my point of view in terms of who I think is heavily involved in these attacks, if not behind the mask. Because believe it or not, once again in the series of Naruto, we have yet another masked stranger behind the scenes, pulling the strings. Just getting mad Toby vibes all over the place with this episode. By the way, did you notice the Toby-like dimensional spiral that we saw when the monster was there, when we saw the eyes of the monster? Kind of like a weird coincidence, right? Because as far as I'm concerned, the only thing capable of creating that spiral is Obito's Sharingan. Or Kagashi's Sharingan, depending on who has it at the time. I also got some serious Conan vibes because of the way the guy in the post office was handling the letters. Just reminded me a lot of her jutsu with paper. So I'm gonna tell you what I think. If I'm right, that's great. If I'm wrong, that's good too, because at least I got you to think about something. And also, it just makes for a good discussion anyway. So, it's a win-win, kinda. Alright, so here goes. If you noticed from the shots that we got with the masked person in this episode in the post office, you'll notice that the person is kind of around the same height as the rest of the kids. Alright, so that in and of itself should be a clue that the person's probably around the same age. Probably within the same age group. In fact, Shikadai by the end of this episode says, it may be the case that the person behind these attacks may be one of us. Maybe, around us. It could be a person that's close to us, okay? Another thing is when Metal Lee was chasing after this person, it seemed like the person disappeared because Metal Lee jumped into the air and all of a sudden he's like, oh wow, there's water, and he falls into the water. Well, the person didn't disappear. The person just went into the water. In fact, Mitsuki kind of confirms this because he actually knows what's up and he follows the person into the water tunnels. Okay? So it's safe to say that the person behind the mask at this point has a pretty good understanding or, considerable knowledge about the way the water routes and channels flow throughout Konoha. Alright? Which, by the way, that may be something that you could probably learn at the water purification plant. It's also important to remember that thanks to Sai's investigation, we know that wood style happens to be left in a lot of these crime scenes. It's part of the puzzle, wood style. And if you remember, in order to create wood style, you need earth style and water style. So water seems to be like a pretty important part of the equation here. In fact, last week, or at least I think it was last week, Boruto, before they decided to go to the post office, Boruto was kind of asking around, like, what are you guys doing for your occupational assignment? And the team that went to the water plant, right, the class rep said, oh, we're going to the water plant, or they were at the water plant or something, and then Boruto was like, what? This seems kind of boring. And then Sumire immediately tells Boruto something like, you shouldn't make fun of this, Boruto, like, water is a source of energy. Water is a source of life. It's really important. And that brings me to my next point. I think Sumire is in some way, shape, or form involved and all of this nonsense. If you go back and rewatch the episode of the Battle of the Sexes, you'll notice that once Boruto accidentally summons the Nue, we find out that that's what it is. It's a Nue, or it's called Nue. The monster, once Konohamaru comes in with the Rasengan, and it kind of just gets dealt with, Sumire comes in and she looks at it and her eyes shift, and automatically we cut away from her. And then she's the one holding the flag, and she's the one responsible for winning the Battle of the Sexes for the girls. I kind of think she did that as a distraction to get people to stop focusing on this really big thing that happened with the monster and get them to focus back on the trivial thing of like this stupid little contest that they had. Then we have another episode with the invisible creepy guy that had a crush on Sumire. Do you remember him? That episode was more of a Chocho episode, but Sumire was there as well. Pretty big part of the episode. However, especially by the end, there's some very interesting moments. So the creepy guy turns invisible, alright, and he begins throwing kunais at Shikadai and Boruto. And he actually says, when he turns invisible, the only person who can see me at this point is Sumire. And he's throwing around these kunai, willing just to hurt and injure Boruto and Shikadai. Not only that, but by the end, there's also a moment where this guy, who's completely invisible, is coming at Chocho from the back, about to stab her in the back of the head. Chocho has no idea that this guy is coming at her, okay? Because she can't see him. So my question is this. If Sumire is the only person there who knows where this guy is, who can see this guy who's invisible to everybody else, why doesn't she just yell out, "Hey guys, look behind you. This guy is right here. I can see him. Look over there." Why doesn't she warn her friends about where this guy is or where the attacks are coming from? She doesn't say a word. And after the issue gets resolved, as they're leaving the scene, as they're leaving the roof, Sumire is the only one who turns to Boruto and asks, "Hey Boruto, what's wrong?" Like, you know, just because she's very innocent and meek and just polite and stuff. Obviously, she's like, she's like Toby. That's her mask. That's her front. Remember how Toby used to like pretend that he was really stupid? I think Sumire just pretends to be really shy and very innocent. So she asks that. Boruto's like, "Oh no, nothing." So she obviously wants to know what's up with Boruto. And as they're leaving the roof, all right, you see a shot of Mitsuki just looking back at her, giving her this really stern, concerned look / eye. Just like, all right, I see what you did there. Also, I thought it was interesting how in this episode we don't really learn much about the victim of the attack at the water plant, but we do know, we have this shot of like Sakura trying to heal him and Boruto talking to Naruto and Naruto saying, I mean, this guy is in critical condition, so this guy would have been killed, all right? Which makes sense that the effect of the chakra absorption were so intense, because if Sumire is the one responsible for the attacks, I mean, she was literally right there. So it would make sense that she would be able to absorb and just consume the chakra without a lot of interference and therefore leave the victim in a very, very critical condition. Also, this may seem like a very obvious question, but I haven't seen a lot of people ask it, so here goes. Why is Sumire class rep in the first place? I mean, I'm assuming she might be good at something. She must be good at something to be able to have that honor of class rep. But what are her jutsus? What are her abilities? How did she earn that title? That seems very strange that she's class rep, but we don't know anything about what she's capable of doing. And last, but definitely not least, the thing that really sealed the deal for me in regards to her character was the scene that we got in this episode when she's in the hospital and she's staring out the window looking at her friends with a very melancholic, very saddened expression. I mean, that's a very weird scene just to have there all of a sudden for no reason. Now, the reason for why Sumire is looking out the window staring at her friends with their parents in that way is because dun 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 dun! Sumire is an orphan. So let me guess, her parents were probably at one point members of the Root organization, the foundation led by Danzo, just like Sai was, except her parents weren't that lucky and they were probably killed in combat or they were killed because of some other conflict, and now she's out to get revenge. I kind of hope that I'm wrong at this point just to be able to be surprised, but you never know. I do have to mention that by the ending of this episode, we hear this mysterious voice talking about the sealed up monster, and it almost sounds like it's Sarutobi's voice, the third Hokage's voice. So I don't know if this is introducing, like, you know, Edo Tensei 2.0, like, how is he able to speak if that's actually Sarutobi, the third Hokage? That's very strange, and obviously I think because of the sort of the connection with Sarutobi's voice there, I think a lot of people are probably going to suspect that the monster is Sarutobi's monkey, because Enma was a summoning too, right? And we saw that Boruto summoned that monster in the Battle of the Sexes. But the reason why it can be Enma is because this episode reveals the name of the creature, and it's Nue. Now, Nue, I'm going to read you in Japanese mythology what that is. A Nue is basically a legendary Japanese yokai. And basically what those are evil spirits that possess people. Okay, so just going right along with the theme of the series of Boruto ever since we saw that first possession happen. Now, the Nue has the face of a monkey, the legs of a tiger, and the body of a tanuki, a Japanese raccoon dog. And another thing is, like, we know how Kishimoto loves to draw from Japanese mythology, like Kaguya as an example of this. So that's basically what they're trying to power up and unleash at this point with all the chakra. And one final comment, this episode actually introduced a limit to Boruto's Shadow Clone Jutsu. It was so interesting to find out that the range of his clones extend only as far as the clones can see the original creator of the clones, which is Boruto. I thought that was a very interesting limit to introduce. It's a little bit disappointing, but at the same time, you know, we know that Boruto isn't overpowered, and also it makes sense because Naruto obviously didn't have this limitation with his clones, but at the same time, Naruto had the 9 tails within him. Boruto doesn't.
So I want to find out how this plays a part in the upcoming fights.
Overall, I thought the episode was pretty good because it gave us more info, more clues that we could sort of like begin to put together and come up with our own conclusions and have a better direction in terms of where this is headed. So I appreciated the episode for that. However, I don't think, like, if you didn't get the clues in the first time you watched it, I'm not sure if the episode was that good for those who didn't get those clues. But I got them, so it was very, very intriguing to me, so that's why I enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Like the video if you did. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Comment down below. What do you think?